journey beyond imposter syndrome. This is where I invite you into a space where high achievers and spiritual leaders converge to redefine success and self-worth. By sharing transformative stories and engaging with thought leaders, this podcast serves as a roadmap for navigating the complexities of imposter syndrome. It's an intimate look into overcoming personal barriers tailored for those who value wisdom, leadership, and intuition in business and life. Join me at the Humble Warrior Podcast with Alani Bankhead. Welcome to the Humble Warrior Podcast, you guys. Today has been a long time coming. I have been just salivating to get Christina Madison on the podcast. She and I have been talking for a very long time, and she's very successful in her business and military and family ventures. She has an incredible story that I can't wait to share with you. So, quick bio. Christina's a heart-centered leadership coach and retreat host for women in military leadership. She's also the host of the Leading with Heart podcast. Her other hats include a major in the Air Force Reserves. She's a wife, a mom to two beautiful kiddos, a 500-hour certified yoga and meditation teacher, and leader of the Strong and Resilient Women online community. Her mission is to empower leaders in the military community to take excellent care of themselves so they can show up as their best selves and lead present and joyful lives. Christina, I'm so excited you're here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited. I love our conversations. You were on my podcast a little while ago, and we had so much fun. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, I really have appreciated all of our interactions. You've always been so authentic and honest and vulnerable, just kind of in everything. So guys, we're going to make sure to link her stuff in the show notes. You're going to want to follow Christina. She's amazing and just super fun. Her videos are hilarious and so true, and even hurt a little bit because of how true they are. But okay, so Christina, let's just jump right in. Tell me a little bit about your journey to here.
Gosh, okay, so long story short, I started my business around the COVID time because I had just opened a yoga studio and then COVID happened, and so we had to shut it all right back down. And so I figured out how to operate in the online space. It took a lot of iterations, it took a lot of making mistakes and also learning who I wanted to talk to and what they wanted to learn from me and how I fit into that space. I tried many times to fit myself into the space in a way that wasn't authentic. And so it's taken a lot of personal growth and self-discovery to get to where I'm at today and to figure out what I love and like what my heart is passionate for. And over the last couple of years, I will say that I have a passion for women that are in service, particularly women who are in military leadership roles, because that's me too. That's my life. And I know firsthand, one, how lonely it can be, two, how exhausting it can be, and three, just how much you need support and a community and tools that you can use, especially when you're in those states of I'm doing it all wrong, or I'm not doing enough, or I'm not enough, or et cetera, et cetera. So I developed an online presence, like an online community to support with that. And then I developed the in-person experience, which are my retreats, which I love so much. And here we are today where I have a community of thousands of women online, which if you had told me at the beginning of this, like one day you're going to be leading like thousands of women online, I'd be like, you're an idiot. You have no idea what you're talking about. Do you know that I'm an introvert and that like I hate attention? But what I've learned is that I am introverted, but I also really like interacting with people in doses. And so I am just super honored to have the opportunity to experience and grow with the women in my community because I'm not the like authority. I am just someone that is living messily alongside of them, and I maybe have a few extra tools in my toolbox. And it's really important for me to share all of the tools, all of the things with all of the people who care to hear them.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. And for those of you who are listening, if you're like, oh, she's military, I'm not military, listen, This conversation is still going to be really helpful for you because one thing that's really common to everybody that listens to this podcast and the people I work with is they're all leaders in their respective industries and they're very heart-centered, very want to be world changers, frustrated with how things are, right? The exhaustion, the isolation are themes in all of their individual communities. And so Christina, I think, is such a powerful example of she created the solution that she needed. And so oftentimes they get notes from people who listen to the podcast or clients of mine who are like, but we need this. And I'm like, well, then go create it. Like you've looked far and wide for those solutions, but oftentimes it's because you were actually called to do that. So let's go back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey because you mentioned, so it was the yoga studio that came first.
It was, yeah. I had actually just quit my civilian job, like my cushy GS, if you know what that is. It was like a very like mid-level, non-supervisory civilian job where I was making great money. I was very comfortable, but I was miserable. Like emotionally, mentally, spiritually miserable. Like going out to my car to cry on the daily. And so I had quit my job in December of 2019 to launch this business. And I opened the yoga studio end of February 2020. No kidding, 3 weeks later, I had to close everything down. And I had sold like punch passes, I had like sold memberships, and I had to figure out how to navigate that whole transition into taking the studio online. And eventually the studio became something else. But at the time, I was like, am I just gonna like refund everybody and like give their money back and just try to get my job back? Or am I gonna figure out how to make this work? And ultimately, I figured out how to make it work.
Yeah. Okay. We got to peel this one back a little bit because so I have a friend who she quit her very cozy job to start a bakery and I'm always like, you're a psycho. Like on what planet do you have a brain to do something like that? And meanwhile people are like, you get shot at and get bombed when and I'm like, but that's different. Like that's easy. Like so walk me through the mindset of like you have these golden handcuffs of this is a financially a very comfortable job, like you're not leading, right? It's non-supervisory. So and for those who aren't familiar with federal government spaces, she's talking about the holy grail of federal government where you're getting paid fat money, you have a pension coming, you don't have to deal with the people drama that comes with leadership, and she gave it all up to start a yoga studio that opened right before the pandemic. So like what kind of self-doubt, like most people would be like, I could never open a yoga studio. Like how did you get past the initial like I'm going to quit everything and blow my professional career up and do this thing that I have no guarantee is going to work out?
So I didn't do it alone. I had some support and coaching. I don't think my husband really understood it at the time. He was like, "You're gonna do what?" And I'm like, "Listen, I know, but he ultimately, he was supportive. He's like, whatever makes you happy, but are you sure?" And I'm like, no, I'm not sure. But I did have a coach at the time that was walking me through some of the mental blocks that I was experiencing. And I think the most common one that I've experienced throughout the building and growing of this business is, who am I to do this? Who am I to teach people? Who am I to open a yoga studio? Who am I to coach leaders about self-care? Who am I to host retreats in person? And that has been a recurring theme, a recurring inner voice throughout my entirety of getting outside of my comfort zone, because my comfort zone is the safety of my engineering job. That's what I do on the civilian side, or I did do on the civilian side, was being an engineer for the Air Force. Same thing that I do on the military reserve side, but I don't love it. Like it pays the bills, sure, but every day I'm like, oh, this is not what I'm meant to be doing. This is so boring. Like I don't like this. And so the thought calculus, I don't really know if there was a whole lot of it. It was more, and I'm not one to quote follow my heart, but it was one of those situations where I was like, I literally cannot stand this job anymore. If I'm ever going to give this a shot, like now is the time. And so I kind of just went for it without really thinking it through. Well, I did think it through. I probably overthought it, but I just went for it. And I did take some risk mitigation measures, which I'm glad that I did. I'm a very risk averse person. I am not one to like go invest, tens of thousands of dollars in a property. So I'd actually found a like karate studio where I was kind of subletting his space. And so I hadn't invested a ton of money into like purchasing a space or leasing a space. I hadn't done any renovations. It was more like I'm going to operate out of an existing space. So for me, it was like, what risk mitigation measures can I take in order to make this decision feel safe?
Yeah, so it sounded like you started small and what was comfortable for you, right? So
100%.
maybe you had a vision for a beautiful yoga studio that was like all aesthetically amazing. But for
Right.
now, to start, it's karate studio.
Yep. With the
Okay.
with the dude in the background, the big dude that you kick the dude and you punch the dude, like he was there. There was like bright blue and red flooring and it you take what you can get. But I'm a stair step approach. Like let's start here, let's figure out the next step and then the next step in order to get to that beautiful earthy aesthetic of the yoga studio, which never happened, but that's okay because now I have all sorts of new dreams. But you got to stair step to get there.
Totally. Well, and I think that highlights the importance of taking action, right? And what was in your control was what kind of life do I want to create for myself? What was not in your control was COVID. But then you still adapted and you made it into something different than what you initially planned, but it's still this really beautiful world. So, out of curiosity, today, as we record, would you consider your business successful?
That's a great question. I think my default, like as you asked me that question, my default was to say no. And crazy, right?
Yeah.
And everybody external would be like, yeah, of course. And like if you looked at my finances from last year, you'd probably say yes. But I always internally feel like I'm failing somehow. There is always this internal voice of it's not good enough. Like you're not where you want to be and you're not making enough of an impact or you don't put out enough videos. You're not like there's so much internal turmoil that you would never know because I don't talk about it. I'm not going to tell you like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I think my business is like a total failure." I'm going to kind of keep all that in, but yes, I would say that there's this internal story of I'm not where I want to be, and therefore I am not successful. And I've had to really work on that. Now, am I content where I'm at right now? Yes, I am content where I'm at right now, but I have big dreams that I don't know how to get to. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's like I always want to get to that next level. And until I get there, I'm not going to feel successful. But even when I get to that level, there's the next level. So it's always this mindset of I'm not where I want to be yet.
Yeah.
And that can be, a little bit frustrating and depressing sometimes. But at the same time, I think it can be transformed into something helpful and motivating and driving when you use it correctly and you're not bringing in all like the negative Nancy, like self-criticism and self-blame or any of like the shame monsters. I try to keep in mind of I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm content where I am.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate to this. So, and there's a whole lot of amazing stuff we got to unpack just in what you just said. So, first, yes, I can totally relate. You brought to my mind Jose Andres, the super famous chef,
Hmm.
right? So for those who don't know who he has like a bunch of Michelin stars. He's also the creator of World Central Kitchen that goes to like war-torn spaces and humanitarian crises areas and they feed people. And Netflix put out a new Chef's Table recently and they had an episode on him. And this man, like when I see this life unfolding, I'm just like this, he's me. Like The idea of I want to maximize my entire life. Like I'm never satisfied. Like there's always more that I want to do. Just being a Michelin starred chef and just having a nonprofit that feeds people in disaster areas, those are like two individual careers that someone could spend a lifetime building to be successful on. He's done both. And even then, at one point during this episode, he's like, what is the best use of my time? Is it sitting here talking to you? Because I don't know that it is, right? Like he's like, it is my greatest gift and it is my biggest curse of the constant like, am I self-caring? Not as much as I should, but there's that internal drive of there's just more to be done and more people that I want to help and more beauty that I want to create. And that really spoke to me. And I think I'm sensing that in you too, right? Where
Yes.
it's like, and actually, it takes a lot of work to get to a place where you're like, I am content with where I am, right? Like, I still got goals. I'm still annoyed. I'm frustrated. Like, I'm not doing really the things I want. I have to do active work to sit here and be like, I'm thankful for what I have. I'm thankful for what I've built. Most people would kill themselves to be in my shoes. But if I'm really honest with myself, it's still not enough. I want
Oh.
more.
Yep. I like when you said that, I thought of the song from Hamilton, the I will never be satisfied. And it's so true. And I think entrepreneurs have this like shared genetic of I'm not satisfied with status quo. I'm not satisfied to just sit in an office and do this job. I'm not satisfied with just existing and taking up space. Like I want more from my life. I want to have impact. I want to make a difference. Whenever you do like a core value exercise, I'm sure you've done them and I'm sure your listeners may have done one or two of them. There's this like when you sit down and you go through your core values. For me, my number one core value is always I need to make a difference. I need to make an impact. I have to have a purpose. And without a purpose, without that North Star of where I'm going, I disengage. I'm not interested. And when I feel stagnant, that's when I start to feel frustrated. That's when I start to feel irritated. It's when I start to experience all these negative emotions that are tied to being misaligned with my personal core values. And so for me, it's I need to be making a difference, but it's always like, how can I make more of a difference? How can I have a larger impact? And that's it's this constant like tug of war struggle because you're not always in the position to make that next bigger impact. So right now, kind of my current big dream that I'm like hiding away in my heart is that I want to open a retreat center for military women, military families, military veterans. Like, I want to have, if you've ever heard of the organization Boulder Crest, I want to do that for women. Boulder Crest is this organization that they host retreats for veterans and service members that are struggling with PTSD. And they create this space for post-traumatic growth. And I'm like, let me create that, but for women and maybe families, and let me create a space where people can come to connect and engage and heal and care for themselves and be loved on and love on each other. And I can't create that right now, and it kills me. It frustrates me to no end because it's like once I had the dream, I was like, let's go. How do I make it happen? Oh, wait, I have to raise money? Like, oh, how am I going to pay for this like $1 million facility, multi-million dollar like set of land? Where am I going to create it? I have so many questions. And then there's this like paralysis of like, oh my God, there's so much that I don't know how to do. So maybe I won't do any of it. And so I'm in that's where I'm at right now. Like full disclosure, that's the tug of war churn that I'm in right now of this is what I want to create. I'm not satisfied with where I am. I want to create this, but I don't have the resources, the time, the ability to create it just now. And so I'm having to go back to how can I be content where I'm at? How can I find joy and gratitude for where I currently am, even though it's not where I want to be?
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your dream with us. I know it's going to happen because you're a get shit
Fingers crossed.
doner. Like it's going to happen for sure. There's so much beautiful wisdom in what you just said and so much honesty. And actually, I want to connect it to something you said earlier, which was when you decided to blow up your old career and launch the yoga studio, your brain then and now still tells you like, who am I to do this? So you and I have done enough like stuff, collaborative stuff in the past that you know my style. So like your inner imposter tells you there's a reason why you're not qualified. So what is the key reason that yours tells you like you're not qualified to do this? What
Mm.
is it?
I think there's two parts to it. One is that my inner imposter doesn't want to be outed for maybe not I hate feeling incapable or like people view me as incapable. That is a terrible feeling that triggers like a shame storm, as Brene Brown would call it. When I feel like I am inept or incapable of doing something, that is a terrible, terrible feeling for me. And I will do anything to avoid feeling that way. Part two is that I have, just like many of us, have an insane fear of failure. Like, what if it doesn't happen? What if it doesn't work out? What if someone comes back and says that they didn't enjoy their experience? What if, I get a negative review? What if this happens? I very much live in the what if space in my head. What if this happens? What if this terrible things happen? What if this bad thing happens? And I think ultimately what my imposter wants, like that inner voice wants for me, is safety and comfort. And sometimes safety and comfort and the big dream, they don't work together. It's impossible to have both at the same time. In order to achieve the big dream, to fully step into that thing that you're like, this is on my heart, this is something that I'm called to do, this is something that I feel passionate about, you're gonna have to get uncomfortable and you're gonna have to take some risks. Me personally, I hate taking risks and I hate being uncomfortable. So there's these two pieces of me that are at war with each other and they don't seem to mesh together. And so I've had to do a lot of inner work around how can I understand both of these parts of myself in a way that I can hold space for both, even though it feels like I can only listen to one or the other. How can I make space for both and?
That is so good. And yes, of course. You hit the nail on the head, right? Which is that your inner imposter is something you created to keep you safe. Now, you've evolved past it in terms of you have mechanisms in place where you can hear the voice and still take the action, right? You have enough of those reps in. But I totally appreciate the whole I don't want to feel incapable or having other people view me as incapable. Like there's nothing worse to me than that. And it's just a constant balance of the two. So then you mentioned though that when you're talking about this beautiful dream of opening this retreat center, right? And you're like, where you take this trauma and you turn it into post-traumatic growth, right? So for those who aren't familiar with that phrase, post-traumatic growth is the idea that like something traumatic happened to you and you can sit and wallow and have the life sucked out of you by it. And it is a completely normal feeling. But you can also shift your mindset to where you can grow and learn from it. And actually, like a lot of beautiful stuff can be born out of this very traumatic event. And another thing that I saw in your brain, the way it was working, is you're such a military officer because we're always looking at the worst case scenario. So
Mm-hmm.
we're like, what's the worst that could happen? And then we come up with a plan to make sure that it doesn't happen. And so
Yep.
that's something, it benefits us on the in the military field because that's how you keep people alive. But then oftentimes we bring that into our businesses and into our families. And so the real flex is getting to a place of contentment, like you said, right? Where I can hold these opposing ideas at the same time of I'm not happy where I am. Like there's more in me that wants to be born and I can acknowledge that I'm content and I'm thankful and I'm lucky. And where I am is what I prayed for a long time ago.
Yes. Yes.
So then for you, in terms of the retreat center for military women, because I know that there are people listening to this who, and they've told me they have dreams of opening facilities for victims of domestic violence, like safe shelters. And like these are all like physical, very expensive buildings or things that
Yep.
require a lot of money. And they're like, how am I going to make the money? Even for me, I've got some dreams of some really big stuff where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to need so much money. Or there's a building in town that I look at and like my soul is tied to this building. I don't know what's coming out of it, but I just look at it
Mm,
and I'm like, how the hell am I gonna like buy that? Like I've never bought a commercial building, you know? But so all that to say, what have you found is a helpful tool to getting you to that place of joy in the midst of the striving and the frustration and the like, oh, I don't have what I want yet?
totally. And I love this question because I'm all about like practical tools. Let's talk about it. Let's philosophize. Like, let's have the theoretical conversation and then give me some no kidding, like hardcore things that I can go take action on. I'm definitely a doer, an action taker. And so I think this is so important, especially when we're talking about mindset and that inner work that often feels intangible. How can we make it tangible? So I think it's a great question. And there's so many different ways that I could answer this question, but I think I'll answer the question that is closest and most relevant to me right now, which is the conversation that I'm having with my own community, which is how can we recognize and interrupt the pattern? And I know you talk to your audience about this. We have these mental programming loops that we get into. A lot of the times, especially with the imposter syndrome, they were programmed to keep us safe. They were programmed to keep us comfortable at the time. But maybe now it's no longer serving us in the way that we need. And so it's time to rewrite the pattern. But how do we do that? So science allows our brain to change. It's called neuroplasticity, and our brain literally has the ability to unwire old neurological connections and rewire new neurological connections. And this is amazing because it literally, anybody that has like that fixed mindset of, well, this is just the way I am, I'm like, well, bullshit. Your brain has the ability to change, and the fact that you don't want to do it doesn't mean that it's not possible. So we have the ability to change our old programming. However, the older the programming, the harder and more intention it's going to take to rewrite that pattern. So the first step to any like internal change, any like shift in mindset is going to be awareness, recognizing this is what I'm saying to myself. And this is the work that you do with your clients. I've read your book, so I know that the first thing is recognizing the voice of your imposter, recognizing exactly what it says to you. What is its tone? What is its voice? What are the words that it says to you? Once you recognize exactly what the pattern is, because a lot of the times it's happening at the subconscious level, you have to bring subconscious to conscious. You have to bring like background to foreground. You have to bring the operating system that's happening in the back, and you got to open up the tab on your computer. And once you recognize it and name it and see it and hear it, well, then you can start to bring the gap between it happening and you being aware of it, and you can start to close that gap. You can start to make that gap smaller and smaller, where you recognize this voice is telling me right now that where I'm at is not enough. I hear it. I hear the voice that says, I have this dream and I'm working towards it, but I don't know how to get there right now. And that creates all of this frustration, anxiety, inner turmoil. And once we start to recognize it, it's going to start by recognizing it after the fact. You're going to debrief yourself and say, "Ah, this happened again. Frick. Hold on. Let me revamp. Let me journal about it. Let me do my inner work." But eventually, the more you pay attention to it and the more you are aware of it, the closer you're going to get the thought and the loop happening and you recognizing it. And eventually, you're going to recognize it in the moment. And that's when you can interrupt the pattern. And that's what we're talking about right now in my community is how do you interrupt the pattern? How do you
Love it.
stop that cycle from repeating itself? And there's a lot of different tools out there, but some is just as simple as saying, this is happening for me right now, and even saying it out loud of right now I am experiencing XYZ. Take a deep breath. count to 10, and then decide what is the new action? What is the new behavior? What is the new thought? What is the new word that I'm going to speak over myself? What is the new? So you decide what is the new behavior that I'm going to insert into this pattern, and this new behavior should be aligned with the type of person that you want to become, the type of person that you are becoming, that identity that you are stepping into. And when you decide what that new action is, what the new word is, like let's say the old is self-criticism. Oh, you're so stupid. Like you're so incapable. I can't believe you screwed this up. Notice it, pattern interrupt. Take a deep breath. I recognize that I'm being really mean to myself right now. My inner Regina George is being a total B, and I'm gonna instead say something kind and compassionate to myself. You know what? Yes, I made a mistake, or I delivered a product that wasn't aligned with the kind of value or the kind of quality that I is important to me. But I also am going to learn from this. I'm going to take these maybe, maybe your boss criticizes you, or maybe your boss gives you some constructive feedback and you're like, "Okay, I'm going to hear what I need to hear from that, and I'm going to grow for next time." And then you repeat that new pattern. Okay, as often as you recognize it, as often as you interrupt the pattern, you cast a vote for the new person. You cast a vote for that new identity, and you get the reps in. The more reps you get in, the more sets you get in, the easier that pattern is going to feel, because guess what? You've gone from one neural connection to two neural connections to three neural connections. And now all of a sudden you have this stronger baby neural connection. And the more you feed this new connection, the more that old connection is going to start to wear away, to thin, and to eventually, hopefully, disappear altogether. So this is the most straightforward way I can share, and this is what I personally do is recognize it, name it, interrupt it, substitute in something new, and then celebrate when you do it. When you
Mm.
get that set in, tell a friend, tell your spouse, tell your coach, tell your therapist, tell someone, or write it down in your journal. I did this today. I cast a vote for the person that I am becoming, and I'm proud of myself.
Oh, that is so good and so simple. So, awareness, interrupt the pattern, celebrate when you do change the pattern, right? And I love this so much for so many reasons because first, it is very simple to apply. But to your point, it's there was an element of everything that you said. There was a theme running through it of getting outside of your head, whether it's verbally saying something or writing it down or manifesting that truth outside of your brain that I actually think is really, really powerful. So, first, when you talk about saying the thing out loud, there's something magical about the mouth filter that when you say it, like the meaning is very different in your brain than it is coming out of your mouth. And I'll give an example. So I know for me, so I teach that your imposter pops up when you're in line with what your life purpose is. So we work on creating that mindset shift so that rather than being scared of the imposter, you're like, oh, you're here. That means like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So when we're talking about saying things out loud, I have a track record of operational success. Every anti child exploitation or anti terrorism or anti espionage operation that I do, I have a track record of success. But yet, every time I go to do another one, the imposter comes up. Like I completely brainwash everything that happened in the past. But when I vocalize what I'm experiencing, it triggers something in my brain where it's like, hey, bless your heart, you've been here. You literally have this feeling every time you do an op. You freak out about it and then it's really successful. Like you literally have never failed. Even when you fail operationally, there's a lot of learning that happens. And so the mouth filter is so powerful because when you
Mm-hmm.
say it out loud, part of you, and I'm sorry to be so blunt about it, but I'll be like, you're being so dumb right now. Like you, Alani, just said that out loud, right? So there's that. And then there's also a lot of science around when you create a two-dimensional version of what you want to build, your brain can't tell the difference between the two dimension and actually creating it. So it thinks it's already a reality and it starts to naturally work towards making that thing happen. So that's why vision boards are so powerful.
Mm.
because you
Mhm.
cut out pictures of stuff and you put it on a board and you say, I'm going to create this. And your brain's like, oh, it's already created. Okay, like let's go about getting the house in the med, kind of thing, or whatever it might be. And so getting out of your head, super powerful. I also want to emphasize something you said about, we tend to be overthinkers and we get in our own heads about a lot of different stuff. But simple, practical steps, simple, practical tools, a little bit at a time is so powerful. So I met with someone recently who, very similar to you, you guys actually, like, you could be kind of twinsies. She's beautiful and brilliant and she's super fit. She's into the wellness, like holistic wellness space.
Mhm.
And she's like, I really want to open a gym. Like the gyms here locally aren't really doing it for me. I'm like, yes, boo boo, do it. I mean, her concept for this gym, it's a fun, beautiful, safe space. It's massive. It supports the community. It's not just like getting coaching. It's, do you need to see a dietitian? Do you need to do mindset stuff? Do you need to see a therapist? Right. And she's like, I keep making lists and nothing happens. And I'm like, okay, so what's the name of the business? And she's like, I don't know, And I'm like, how about you just pick a name? You go to the Secretary of State website, it's $25 in 15 minutes, register the business, right? And
Yes.
she's like, oh, like,
Yes.
but to your point, it's there. Sometimes we can get stuck in that pattern of we think that thinking is doing. And there is a time and a place to do the mindset work, but there's also a time and a place to just take tiny little courageous action to create that thing, right? And it's
Mhm.
tiny little steps will get us there. So this is so great. Awareness, interrupt the pattern, create the change, celebrate.
Yeah.
So next thing, because I know your retreat center, I'm really curious about that because I'm already celebrating with you when you do create it because it's coming. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm curious, like in the current space you're in, because I know people listening are asking this for themselves. You mentioned, like, I don't know how to open it, like, where do I get the funding, all that stuff. So, that one retreat center you mentioned that is kind of the model for what you want to build. Have you talked to anybody there?
So that's a great that's a great question. I There are two facilities that model what I want to build, and for a while the answer was no. I had not reached out because I was nervous and I'm like, they're not going to talk to me. And I have reached out to one of them. I got a response that was basically like, you can come book and stay at our place and then you can talk to the person. And I'm like, okay, yeah, perfect. The other one I haven't reached out to yet, but now I'm like, maybe I will. Maybe I'll go, like, tell me how you got started, because you're right. Like, sometimes those little actions that move us toward it's just like me telling you that I want to create something like that right now. Like, for a while, I didn't tell anyone. Like, that was my little secret, and I kept it inside, and I wouldn't tell anybody because I was afraid to put it out. And now I'm like, well, I'm going to tell everyone because, one, it holds me accountable. Me saying it out loud is it brought it into reality. Like, the first time I said it
Yeah.
out loud for the first time, I was like, holy shit, like, I'm gonna make this. Like, this is going to happen. I just
Yeah.
have to figure out the how. And now the more people that I tell, it's one, it's healthy for me because I'm voicing it, but also two, I'm like, what if throughout the act of voicing it, I find the next person that's critical in my journey? What if I find a a land real estate agent the next time I voice it out loud? What if I find a lawyer the next time I voice it out loud? What if I find someone who is like an expert in grant writing the next time I say it out loud? And I believe that God has like specifically placed people along the journey and steps along this journey that come at the time that I need them. And oftentimes it's very hard to wait patiently for the next step because I may not be ready for the next step. But to answer your question, I think like reaching out and like saying it and talking to people is kind of where I'm at right now, is starting to like gather that data, starting to learn like what could be involved in the how, what is part of the process, so that I understand the steps that will need to happen over the next 3 to 5 years as I hopefully bring this dream into reality.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And so vocalizing also creates accountability, is what I'm hearing you say.
Mm-hmm.
And you said the G word, which we're going to get to in a second here. But you're also saying the more I vocalize it, the more I'm putting it out there, the more opportunity there is for God to answer the call to fill that need, right? Like my
Yeah.
little bit that I am responsible for that I can control is putting the dream out there, gathering the data, getting the affirmation, if people are like, "Oh, why would you do that?" Like there's no need for that, right? Versus people are like, "Oh my gosh, Christina, why haven't you built it yet?" Right? Which I'm sure is the feedback that you're getting is, "Yes, please hurry up and do it. We want to support you." So, in terms of your relationship business wise to your spiritual practice, because that's a really big part of what we do here on the Humble Warrior podcast, because heart centered world changers all create solutions that don't exist, right? So, like the military yogi didn't exist, and that community is massive now. And it's something that was really badly needed, right? So, the metaphysical, as I define it, is something that you know to be true that you have zero physical evidence to support. So, for you, how does your spiritual practice play into your creation of these solutions that the community needs so badly?
Mm. What a great, beautiful question. I will say that up until recently, it didn't. Those were two separate areas of my life that I kept compartmentalized. And it's a whole other podcast to talk about my relationship with God and kind of
Hmm.
the arguments that I've had with him over the past decade of my life. But recently, I was actually talking to my therapist and she was like, "Why are they separate? Why aren't it's a part of you. Like your spiritual life is a part of you and it's a part of my life that I'm actively working on right now. It's a part of my life that has been neglected. My spiritual health has been neglected for a lot of years. And just recently, within like the past probably 6 months, I started listening to a podcast on the way to work because I was like, well, I don't have time to read my Bible, so I'm not going to read my Bible. And God was like, well, why don't you do something different that works for you in your life? And I was like, fine. So I Googled like Bible study podcast and the She Hears podcast popped up. And I've been listening to it on the way to work almost every day for the past 3 months. And it has been a complete game changer because God is inserting little breadcrumbs of what I need to hear into my drive on the way. And there are days when I'm driving where tears are like streaming out. And I'm like crying on my way to work because God had just revealed something to me or he had shared something with me. Because for the longest time, I was like, well, God doesn't talk to me because I don't hear this big, loud, booming voice that says, your next step is to purchase land in the state of Texas. Like, he doesn't talk to me that way. Instead, he inserts little messages in what I am hearing throughout the day. And this podcast has been the primary source of what I
Oh.
need to hear. And so it's been little messages, things like stepping out in faith, taking that like first step. It's been being patient in the waiting. We were talking about Abraham and Sarah and how they waited 90 years for a child that God has promised them. And I was like, well, I'm not going to wait 90 years because I'll be dead. But like, I will work on my patience, Lord God. And I think like 2 weeks later, a new little piece of the journey unfolded. And so I've learned a lot about my spiritual journey and how it so much intertwines with my personal journey and my career and my dreams and what I want to create. And I think ultimately the first step was accepting that this desire that is created is from God. Like I didn't create it myself. I did not decide one day of this is what I wanted to do. Like I was created for this. I was put on this earth for this. And that is so comforting and it is so like affirming in
Yeah.
knowing that this dream is not just something that is like a whim or like something that I saw on TV or, just it's not it's a big deal
Yeah.
because it was literally put in my heart by the creator.
Mm,
And
yes.
that's all I need to know for now.
Oh my gosh, that is so good. And I really appreciate your honesty and how messy the spiritual journey is
So
because
messy.
Shocker, it's messy for everybody, right? Like, I think, and I was certainly guilty of this when I was younger. It was like I grew up in the church of the 80s and 90s, and everything was very prescribed and like very like to checklisty, right? And then obviously, like as an adult, I did what every good 80s Christian did, and I left the church and I sex, drugs, and rock and roll and all the things. And but I could always feel that little kernel of I'm gonna come back to God at some point. Like that was in me, right?
Yes.
But the honesty is the spiritual practice, right? It's not about spiritual perfection. It's about saying, I'm mad about this. I'm sad about this. I don't trust you with this. Like things aren't working out, right? And still receiving the love, right? The acknowledgement coming back to like awareness, right? I know one thing I've learned is the truth of God does not, He did not create me to do, He created me to be loved.
Mm.
And so often, especially as women, we get stuck in that doing thing because traditional religious upbringing is you receive God's blessings when you're a good person, when you do good things, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's just not true. And that was a whole mind screw to begin with. But so, all that to say, I'm curious if you're open to this part of the conversation because what you shared about your spirituality is so powerful and so true and so honoring of where you are right now, which is the most important thing, right? And you mentioned something before we started recording that was really fascinating to me, which you said, I took 3 years of orders because of my fears around money. So Christina's a reservist. She mentioned that. So she's on active duty for right now. And so you guys have already heard her talk about my business is financially successful. Like I'm doing good, but I made this decision. And I think I'm curious if you'd be open to talking about that a little bit because I think what we've really been talking about is I have a God given gift and right to create the life that I was created for, right? That includes building a beautiful, heart centered business that helps leaders not feel alone. It includes wanting money to build an amazing facility, which maybe a lot of people feel guilt and shame about wanting money. And for you, it sounds like there was a little bit of, oh my gosh, there's some money stuff happening. I'm going to run and go on orders for 3 years, which I've totally been guilty of myself. So, do you mind sharing a little bit about like what is that whole thing about?
Yeah, and it's messy. I'll preface it by sharing I don't even fully understand all the facets of it, and so please forgive me if this next little segment is messy and kind of all over the place. But I'll start by saying I have money issues. I love my dad. I grew up with a very frugal dad. Out of necessity, we had to be careful with money. And so now I have probably an obsession with money. Money is a driver for a lot of my actions, and it's the source of a lot of my fears. And so I have a very messy and tumultuous relationship with money, and I always want more. And that can be problematic from time to time, especially if you're in a season where you're taking a break from money, which is kind of what I did when I was opening the business. I just kind of accepted like I am not going to financially contribute to my family in the way that I'm used to for a while. And for a couple years, that was okay. But about 2 years ago, I started really feeling like that internal, oh, I feel like I'm not financially contributing because a lot of the time with my business, and I'm sure other entrepreneurs deal with this, every dime that I made, I was funneling back into the business. I was not paying myself, I was not paying my family. Like none of my business revenue was going towards a personal paycheck. And that's a tangent that I'm not going to go on, but I felt like I was not supporting my family financially. And so every once in a while I would take like 60 days of orders, I would take 90 days of orders just to like make myself feel better. But then an opportunity came up where it was like you can do 3 years full time as an AGR. It's where you already live. You don't have to move. It's a unit that you've already been a part of. and they know you and they want you and they pet my ego a little bit. They were like, we really want you and we need you and can you please come and help us? And I was like, da 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 da, I'm here to save the day. It's like I love rescuing people and I love being wanted and needed, and they pet my ego just the right way where I was like, well, I guess I'm going to take this job. And I will say that after about 6 months, was there some regret? Yes, 100%. I did regret the decision in that my business had to take a serious backseat. I had to stop doing a lot of the things that I was used to doing. And I felt like my passion and my purpose was also taking a backseat, which was difficult. Now, I will say that over the last recent 6 months, I have been doing some work around reframing the job because I have 2 more years to go, right? I have a long ways to go, and so there's really no end in sight. And so I had to decide, like, how am I going to view this? Are you going to view this as a curse or a blessing or somewhere in between? And so I will say that the paycheck has allowed me, one, to financially contribute to my family, to allow us to go on, some cool vacations, to pay off some debt, to do some things that were really important for us. And now that I have this like retreat center dream, we're starting to invest in a high yield savings account. And that's my retreat center account, right? Like that is the money that eventually I'm going to hopefully use as a down payment on either a piece of land or a renovation of an existing facility. And I couldn't have done that without this current job. Now, am I delivering at the level of service that I desire or that I'm used to? No. Do I have time to have clients and do one-on-one coaching? No. Do I have time to run my signature program that was a huge source of revenue for my business? No. And so I've taken a loss every month. And that is triggering. When I avoid meetings with my bookkeeper because I literally don't want to hear that I've taken another financial loss because it triggers me. And a lot of time when I'm triggered, I overperform and I overwork and I bleed myself dry. And so there's a lot of like messy, complex things that are happening right now in my life where I'm like, yeah, it's a blessing, but it's also a curse, and I'm miserable, but I'm also kind of happy. And I like the job, but I also don't like the job. And I want to do my business, but I don't have time for my business. And it's super messy. And it's real and it's complicated, and I don't know what the right answer is. So, all of that to say, I've had to really explore and look at my relationship with these different aspects of my life. And I've burned myself out, at least once over the past year. And I had to get to a point where I wasn't doing my business at all because I was temporarily in squadron command for 7 months and everything had to take a back seat. And so now that I'm not in the commander role anymore, I'm trying to figure out the new balance of how much am I working on my business? How much am I working on my job? How much am I working on my retreats and my future retreat center? There's some things happening behind the scenes that I'm not going to share because they're very uncertain at the moment. But I am actively trying to take the next steps that move me closer towards that retreat center. And I don't know what it looks like yet. And I don't know if it's going to work out. And I don't know if I'm going to be successful. But I've had a lot of that came from those messages that we talked about earlier about stepping out in faith, taking that next little step, making some risky decisions that, may have uncertain outcomes. But in all of it, I've tried to listen to my gut and listen to that kind of internal push. I won't say like the voice of God because I don't really hear like a clear,
Sure.
distinct voice, but I feel that gut feeling
Mhm.
that a lot of the times I'm like, I think this is God. I hope this is God. This is where my heart is kind of leaning towards. And so I have to rely on the hope and the belief that this is God gently nudging me towards that next step. And I don't know if it's going to work out, but I'm leaning forward in faith and hoping that it'll catch me.
Oh, that is such a beautiful answer and so honest. And I can totally relate to what you're saying because I'm almost exactly in the same boat where I'm on active duty too. This is before we started recording. Christina and I were talking about this, but I didn't take the orders because I had money fears, although I was like, the money would be amazing,
It's
right?
super
Like, I'm like,
nice.
I could made a lot of money when I'm on active duty. My spiritual practice is such that, admittedly, I've had a very love-hate relationship with the Air Force. Like, I was raised in the Air Force, I was forged in the Air Force. I'm so thankful for it. And also, I have a lot of serious like hurts and wounds from the Air Force that I've had to do a lot of work to heal around. Overall, net positive, like I'm thankful for it. But as a reservist, my journey was always I'm doing the minimum until retirement. And then sometimes opportunities to go on orders outside of the minimum would come up. And I'd always be like praying. And I'm like, when I open, like, I'm like, dear God, if you want this to happen, I trust like you're going to make it happen, but I really don't want it to happen. But if you leave the door wide open, I will walk through it.
Yeah.
And every time, almost every time, the door closed. And so I'm like, whew, don't have to do that. Thank God. This one stayed wide open. And I was like, okay,
Mhm.
there's a good reason to go into this. And, I will say, I think to your point, it's been a real opportunity to not only heal a lot of past stuff, but reimagine my relationship with active duty and recreating what I want from it, right? And
Mm.
not from like a selfish point, but like heart-centered world changers are always thinking about other people. You're always thinking about making the world a better place. So it really has been like, what solutions did I need when I was a baby agent and didn't know any better? And what do I hear from the space they need to shorten their gap from where they are to confident and
Mm.
courageous? And it's been a whole process, right? Like, I fully admit, so I'm mountain time, they are on East Coast time. And I went back into some of those old patterns of waking up at 4 a.m. so I could be like up, online really early so they could really see like, oh, look at Alani. She's such a go-getter, right? Those old, unhealthy, overworking patterns. It's been like a whole thing to be like, no, I'm going to work out. No, I'm going to journal for, before my time. No, I'm going to go do this thing that really needs to get done that I need to do to feed my soul and my wellness so I don't burn out, right? That is a whole exercise in and of itself. And I'm in the tail end of my time and a whole bunch of stuff has happened. And, admittedly, like I love my people. It can be a really tough, toxic space to work in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
And getting to a place where I'm like, what is like the love song I want to sing and what is the gift I want to offer these guys on my way out? And so there are two really big projects that it's been really interesting as I do them. I feel so much love and I get emotionally kind of overwhelmed sometimes when I think about it because the idea that like all the past 20 plus years of struggle and strife have gotten me here and I can see my growth and I'm like, wow, I'm in a position where I can actually help people and remove barriers to their success. And that is such an incredible gift, right? On the flip side, I also like borderline want to cuss somebody out or I might do some unhealthy things that I'm not proud of, but like it's just a messy process, right? But all that to say, I think what we're really coming back to is like, I think God or the universe, like, for the listeners, you guys know me, like, you don't have to prescribe to Christianity, but the point is, like, we're examining what spiritual beliefs look like. And I think when you're a doer, so often your worth you think is hinged on what you can do and accomplish and achieve. And I think what I'm hearing you say is you're really stepping into this really beautiful new season of my worth is not contingent on what I can do, but I'm willing to get messy and wrestle with the old habits and ideas that aren't serving me. And I'm willing to acknowledge that I don't know really what the truth is, but I believe that I'm on a journey to discovering what that truth is for me. And so if today I'm on orders because I was scared about money and I wanted to contribute to my family because I love my family, right? I want my family to have the things. I'm in the same boat. But to your credit, you're also seizing that opportunity to the fullest to say, what can we build with this decision that I made?
Yes.
And how can this decision support that future that I want to create? And I think for the listener, what I want you to know is like, I'm super thankful for Christina's honesty, especially around this topic, because the money is just, it's one of the messier things about building those changes to the world that you want. And if you have the courage to dive in and openly say like, yeah, I want money and I need money and I like having money. Like I like having nice things. I want my kids to have nice things. Or "Oh, I deserve abundance." Whoa.
What?
Whoa.
Now you're getting crazy.
I know, getting so crazy. And that's the real work I think for people like us, right? Is in learning that like, and actually one tool that I use a lot is if you flip it and it's your best friend having these thoughts, would you want your best friend to have that thing? And the answer is, of course, I want my friend to have abundance. Like, I would go to the ends of the earth to help my friend open her retreat center. Like, what do you need, bro? So then why can't you do it for yourself? Is the question that
Mm.
we need to flip back on ourselves, right? Oh my gosh, Christina, this has been so amazing. I'm so, so thankful to you. And I know I want to acknowledge where you are in terms of honoring that person that's like, I don't have it all figured out. I still have fears, but I cling to my little mustard seed of faith and I just try to do a little bit better every day. And maybe it's not enough in the grand scheme, but I think what you're really stepping into is God can do the things that maybe you feel like you're not capable of doing, and giving God the space to come in and love on us in that way is one of the hardest things that we'll ever do. But I'm so, so, so thankful for your time. What final messages do you want to leave folks with, if any?
I think the final little kernel. Well, first I'll say thank you so much for having me and thank you for this authentic and very real. Thank you for the opportunity to be like messy and not have like a polished message. That's what I love so much about you and your message and the work that you're doing is that you hold space for people to be genuine and messy and all the things. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity to talk with you and to share with your audience. I think the last little message that I would want to leave folks with is really going back to what is your North Star? What is that direction that you're moving in? And this is work that I do with my clients at the very beginning of our coaching relationship is we do this like North Star meditation where I have you envision like who is the woman that you're becoming? Who's the leader that you're stepping into? Kind of that visioning that you were talking about, like creating a vision board. Now we're taking it beyond like goals and dreams and houses and cars and vacations, and we're putting yourself on the vision board. Who is it that you're becoming? What kind of qualities, behaviors, actions, thoughts, and ways of being would you put on that board? And then you reverse engineer and you start to work backward. And you're like, okay, what systems do I need to put in place in order to work towards that version of myself? What kind of things do I need to say to myself regularly in order to work towards that person on the board? What self-care practices do I need to be consistent with in order to become that person that I'm visioning on my board? And then you start to take those steps, build the systems, build the habits, read some books, listen to some podcasts, and start actually doing the work towards taking intentional baby steps towards becoming that version of yourself. And take some time, invest some time in either identifying your values or invest some time in doing some inner work, some journaling. Maybe you can even use Chat GPT for this kind of stuff. Like don't be afraid to use like AI to help you untangle your thoughts. And then finally, if you have the financial ability to do so, work with a coach. Don't do it alone, friend. Like if you can, work with someone who will see you in your efforts and support you and help you and also help you get out of your own way because a lot of the times those are the biggest barriers to growth is that we stand in our own way, our old beliefs, our old patterns, our old relationships, our old kind of ways of operating stand in the way of us and the person we aspire to be. And sometimes we can't break through those barriers on our own. And that's when it's super helpful to have a therapist, a counselor, or a coach that can help you work through those barriers in a way that opens up the pathway to who you know you can become, but you just need some support to get there. And so, with that, don't do it alone. Do it with someone else if you can, and invest some time in yourself.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Such powerful words to close us out with. And Christina, thank you so much for offering your gifts to the world. The Air Force would not be as happy a space for me without the military yogi. When I see your fun videos popping in my feed, it just brings some joy and levity and truth to some hard situations that we deal with. And guys, if Christina inspires you, please connect with her. Christina, how can people find you?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Instagram at the military YOGI. I'm sure you can find the link in the show notes. You are welcome to join my community that way. You're welcome to my Facebook group is mostly focused on military women, but a lot of the things that I do in my Facebook group, I share snippets of on my social media as well. And then if you have a specific question or if you want some resources about what I talked about today, if you want a copy of the North Star meditation, if you would like a values exercise, I have a lot of free resources. I even have a Chat GPT prompt pack to help you identify like some of your blind spots and personal blocks. All of that I share for free. You can send me an email. I'll give the links to Alani for kind of some of those key resources that popped up in my head while we were having this conversation. And you're welcome to them. Like, please use them. Please utilize them. Please use them as tools in your own journey. And then if you're really looking for like some like no kidding tangible practical tools, I am trying to launch an app in September that will help with some of that. And I know Alani's like, wait, what? So I have an app that's launching in September. I'll share the information with Alani about that as well. And the whole goal of that will truly be like tangible, practical tools that you can use to do this kind of mental, spiritual, emotional work and give you, no kidding, like some practical tools that you can use daily to work on these areas of growth.
Oh my gosh, Christina, you're incredible. Guys, she's so generous. Like the tools she's talking about are literally worth thousands of dollars. Okay. And she's offering it to you for free. This is who a humble warrior is, just loving on people, supporting, giving the gift so that you can be your best self, so you can unleash your gifts. Because I don't know if anybody's noticed, the world is kind of going to hell in a handbasket right now. So we need you to be the best version of yourself. Thank you, Christina, for your courage and your honesty and your generosity. I'm looking forward to adding those. They will be in the show notes for people. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. And so, guys, we will link all of those resources for you. I will also link the values exercise that I have as a freebie on my website, mightysparrowcoaching.com. There are prompts, or you can get my best-selling book, The Least of Us: How Your Imposter Points to Your Greatest Power, available at all major book retailers. So until next time, humble warriors, please remember the world needs who you were made to be. Thank you for joining us today on this journey to discover how you can harness your imposter to work for you. If you enjoyed this episode and would like some help overcoming your imposter syndrome, check out the free life purpose exercise on my website and subscribe to my blog. If you already know what your life purpose is and are ready to crush or harness your imposter syndrome, then you're going to love my best-selling book, The Least of Us: How Your Weakness Points to Your Greatest Power, available on Amazon and all major book retailers. Or you can hit me up at alani@mightysparrowcoaching.com to discuss private coaching or corporate and government training. That's ALANI@mightysparrowcoaching.com. Listen, there's only ever been one you, and there will only ever be one you. And you have a specific gift to give that the world desperately needs. Don't let your self-doubt be the thing preventing you from living your most joyful and impactful life. Until next time, I'm always cheering you on.